Hello again. What did I hear? I actually heard quite a few things this morning. Caught a little bit of the news, and Obama hasn't spent any time talking about the murders in Virginia, other than saying that there's more people killed in America with guns than by terrorists, which is a completely insane analogy. Rudy Giuliani was a guest, and they were discussing exactly what Obama had said. And again, Rudy thought that it was totally off the wall. It made zero sense. Comparing terrorists and what they do by beheading and slaughtering and raping, and comparing them to people that are killed by guns in the United States is insane. Somebody needs to ask Barack Hussein Obama what he thinks would happen if he could wave a wand and take away guns from all law-abiding citizens. What he would do is he would turn them all into gun-free zones. That's what he would do. They had Sheriff David Clarke on, and he pretty much said the same thing. And he sort of elaborated by saying it's really amazing how people that have 24/7 armed protection, like does the chosen one, as does Michael, his transgender, as do the kids, as does Valerie Jarrett, who's not even an elected official. Don't you think that if Obama wants Valerie Jarrett to have Secret Service protection, he should pay for it? Why should you pay for it? I've asked that question before, but nobody seemed to care. And then you got Hillary Rotten Clinton. She's now comparing Republicans to terrorists. She also, along with Billy Bob, and I'm sure Chelsea, have 24/7 Secret Service protection. You never see Hillary without men around her wearing sunglasses. Dark sunglasses. Somebody needs to ask Barack Hussein Obama what he thinks would happen if he could take away Americans' Second Amendment rights. Well, let me tell you what would happen. If Americans gave up these, they'd also give up many of their own lives. Why? Because by the Americans giving up these that are law-abiding citizens, the criminal element would have opportunities throughout the country which would become gun-free zones. And the only people that would have guns would be the police and the bad guys. Well, they say if somebody is about to rob you, call the police. What for? So they could identify the bodies? The whole thing's ridiculous. Rudy Giuliani was on Fox News, and he spoke about his own Secret Service protection that he has because of all the countless death threats he's had. And he said if he didn't have Secret Service protection, or protection provided by the government, he'd have one of these, so he could protect his family and his own life. He also thought it was absurd that Obama made the comments that he did with respect to comparing murders by terrorists in the United States and by Americans. And then you had Hillary compare terrorists to Republicans, or Republicans to terrorists. Yet she and Billy Bob have 24/7, as does, I'm sure, Chelsea, that you're paying for. Billy Bob and Hillary were the last presidential couple that received 24/7 for the rest of their miserable lives. George W. Bush had Secret Service for 10 years. That flap-eared, crackhead, smoking, homosexual, Sunni Muslim Arab changed that. So he and that freak that he's living with, and I'm sure their kids, and probably Valerie Jarrett, have Secret Service for the rest of their miserable lives that you're paying for. Why are their lives more valuable than ours? Mayor Bloomberg, who's dead set against people having guns, he has 24/7 protection that he pays for. Why should his life be worth more than mine? Why shouldn't I be able to protect my life with one of these? The whole thing's totally insane. You know, I've mentioned this more than once. I don't see Obama leaving. Take a look at the Democratic lineup. Who do you have that's even close to potentially being the Democratic nominee? Well, you could say we've got Hillary. You have Hillary. The question is, how long are you going to have Hillary? Rudy Giuliani said what I've said. If we had a real effective Department of Justice, Hillary and Bill would probably be wearing jumpsuits right now. Rudy Giuliani said that when he was mayor, he put someone in prison, I guess that was an elected official, for $42,000 worth of embezzlements. And you got the Clintons with their hundreds of millions of dollars Ponzi scheme of theirs through their foundation. It isn't a Ponzi scheme, but it's a criminal act. They donate money to their own charity. They write off the donation, and they use the money for their own personal use, tax-free. That's against the law. Problem is, we don't have a true, just legal system. Irrespective of that, I still believe that Obama will be asking the Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, to investigate the Clintons, which I'm sure they're already doing, both for the illegal activities of Hillary and her server, along with the illegal activities of their foundation. What do you think's going to happen when she gets arrested? Biden already has come out and said that he doesn't have the energy. He's not going to run. He'd rather leave as a vice president than as a clown, not having enough Americans vote for him. And he doesn't have the energy. So who's left? A 76-year-old Democratic Socialist? There's nobody left, which is how it was planned to begin with. They don't want anybody of any prominence to be a candidate. Obama can't give up his power base. You've got somebody in the White House that we know has a forged birth certificate. The document posted on the official White House website is an absolute forgery. Sheriff Joe and Mike Zulu's proven it. It lists Barack Obama Sr. as his father. It says place of birth, Kenya. Well, Kenya didn't even exist in 1961. That country was known as a British protectorate until 1963. So how could his father have been born in Kenya when Kenya didn't even exist? When that birth certificate was produced, they listed his father as being African. That word wasn't used on birth certificates. What was used was Negro. out of the millions of birth certificates, Barack Obama's is the only one that says African at that time period. They all said Negro. Take a look at Obama's military registration card. His is the only one that has a 2-digit stamp for the date. You know why? They couldn't find a 1980. Well, what they found was a 2008. So if you turn that upside down and you cut off the 2 and the 0, you've got 80. Problem is, the little circle is now at the bottom of the 8 versus at the top. You've got someone that has a birth certificate that we know is forged. You've got someone that has a military registration card that we know is forged. And you got someone that has a social security number that belonged to someone that was born in 1890 in Connecticut. And yet he is the President of the United States. The only way that that could happen is if you got a complicit Congress. But let's go beyond that. So now you've got this guy who's been playing president for over 7 years, or almost 7 years, and he's put together all kinds of executive orders, open borders, and Obamacare, which still doesn't work. $5 billion in software, and it still doesn't work. And then you've got someone that shouldn't be there. We know that Elena Kagan, who Obama made a Supreme Court justice, we know that she wasn't even a judge, but she did bury his past with the law firm that Eric H. Holder Jr. was a partner in. That once Obama stole the Oval Office, he made Eric H. Holder Jr. responsible for being the top lawman, the Attorney General. He still would be, but I think he's got a bad pump. You know, the stress of lying finally got to him. Which is why along came Loretta Lynch. Now what's interesting about Loretta Lynch is she was Eric H. Holder Jr.'s sorority sister when they went to college. They belonged to the same black sisterhood. The whole thing's insane. Absolutely and completely insane. But what do you think would happen if somebody like Donald Trump got into the White House? You think maybe he would reverse the first executive order that Obama signed? Do you not find it sort of strange that the very first executive order that the president signs is to bury his past? Why would anyone do that unless they had a reason to do that? So again, back, let's say that Donald Trump becomes president and he signs his first executive order, which is to unravel Obama's past. What do you think would happen to Obama if it was proven that he was in fact born in Kenya? Well, even if he's not born in Kenya, he's still not eligible to be in the Oval Office because he's a British subject, but that's a different story. But let's assume that he's proven to be born elsewhere, other than Hawaii. Every single thing that he's done would be reversed. Every appointment that he's made, every executive order that he signed, Obamacare, it would all be disassembled. So, what else would happen? Well, what would happen is there would be a massive trial. Obama would be tried for treason, aiding and abetting the enemies of the United States, which is what that Iranian deal is really about. It is aiding and abetting enemies of the United States. It's a pure act of treason. But he's committed treason elsewhere. He's committed treason by funding and equipping the rebel freedom fighters that have morphed into ISIS. He's admitted openly in murdering American citizens with drones. There's very few things that anybody could point to that Obama has done that's fair. So what would happen to him? Well, he'd be tried for treason, among other crimes he's committed. And what would happen to him if he was found guilty of treason? Well, he'd end up with the same fate as Saddam Hussein. He'd walk 13 steps to the hangman's noose. Do you think he's going to allow that to happen? The only way he can prevent it from happening is if he gets somebody that's going to be loyal to protect him into the Oval Office. And that would mean another whacked out Democrat. Or he maintains power one of two ways, either directly or indirectly. Directly, by exerting martial law. Or indirectly, by having Michael come out as the first transgender president of the United States. And he would tell the American people that unless that were to happen, everything that he's done would be reversed. Everything. Which is why I don't see him leaving. He can't leave. That's sort of what I think. For those of you that listen to this video from beginning to end, let me know. Let me know by liking it. For those of you that don't like it, let me know by not liking it. I told you what I think. I told you why I think what I think. If we are forced to give these up, we will all become slaves. Think not. You're not thinking.